Let's can sloppy joes. This recipe comes from the Complete Guide to Pressure Canning, a book by Diane Devereaux. So I'm not going to post a written recipe, but I will link the book in an Amazon link in the description. First thing I've done is cook my ground beef all the way through and drain the fat. I am doubling this recipe, so I started with 12 pounds of ground beef. Then I added 6 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 4 cups of onions, 2 cups of bell pepper. Now I'm just going to let this cook until the onions begin to soften. Then I added a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, maybe a little bit more, and 12 cloves of garlic. So I'm just going to mix this in and let that garlic cook for just a minute before I add the rest of my ingredients. I'm going to add 4 cups of tomato sauce, and this is home canned tomato sauce that I made last year. I'm also going to add 4 cups of ketchup. I do have my ketchup labeled as good ketchup because I did make some last year that wasn't so great, but I used it for cooking and I wanted to distinguish the good from the bad. I'm also going to add 4 cups or 1 quart of beef broth. But first I'm going to put into my pot a half a cup of packed brown sugar and 2 tablespoons of plain yellow mustard. Once I bring this mixture to a boil, I'm going to let it boil hard for 5 minutes, stirring constantly so that the tomato sauce does not scorch on the bottom of my pan. I am canning in pint jars today because I like to give this to my kids and they don't typically cook a quart at a time. I am going to ladle the hot liquid into hot jars, leaving 1 inch of head space, then wipe the rims really well with a paper towel soaked in white vinegar. That is to remove any fat or any particles that would be on the rim of the jar and prevent the jar from sealing in the canning process. Then I put the lids and the rings on finger tight and add them to my canner. I'm going to double stack my canner today, so I am adding my jars as I'm taking that bottom layer of jars out of the canner. And now I'm going to repeat the process. Fill my jars, wipe the rims, place the lids, screw the rings on, and add them to my canner. I have the layer of my jars divided by the canning rack that you saw there. Now I'm going to place the lid on my canner, make sure that it's level, and screw it down tightly. And then I allow my canner to come up to heat, and once it has vented a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes, I'll add my weight. For my altitude, I use a 10-pound weight. And because I could not find my All-American weight, I'm using the one from my Miro canner. And for pint jars, I'm going to process these for 75 minutes. After 75 minutes, I turn the heat off. Once the canner has come completely down from pressure, I remove the weight and wait another 2 minutes before removing the lid and the jars. And I was happy to note that I had no siphoning, which I usually do when I'm canning meat products. All I have to do to prepare this is dump it into a pot and heat it through and let it cook to the consistency that we like, which usually takes between 10 and 15 minutes. And then you have sloppy joes ready to eat.